Okay, let's get started. So welcome to our webinar, Secure Real-Time Monitoring and Analysis for IoT Product Engineering. My name is Rdmp and I will be your host today. So today's presenters are Shabir Rupani, Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, Kinjan Shah, who is our Director of IoT and MedTech Practice at Infostretch, and Shintan Prajapati, who is our Solutions Architect focused on IoT and MedTech at Infostretch. So a bit of backgrounds on all of our speakers. Shabir is a Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. He has a strong background in applications infrastructure architecture with a core focus on migrating and modernizing applications for the cloud. Currently at AWS, he is focused on helping the AWS Partner Network, APN, build and develop their AWS practice and innovate on the AWS platform to deliver the best possible outcomes for their customers. Kinjan, who is our Director of IoT and MedTech Engineering at Infostretch, has led the creation of various frameworks that enable MedTech companies to shorten their product development cycle. He has more than 22 years of experience in IoT solutions and MedTech engineering, along with enterprise mobile applications, embedded systems, and enterprise solutions. He has worked with both startups and Fortune 500 companies across different industries, including healthcare, medical devices, financial, mobile and digital payments, and industrial automation. And finally, as a solutions architect and part of our IoT and MedTech practice at Infostretch, Shintan is involved in building accelerators and frameworks to expedite delivery of IoT and mobility solutions. Shintan is involved in project seeding, activities, and solutions development for customers on their consumer IoT, industrial IoT, Internet of Medical Things, also known as IOMT, mobility and cloud initiatives. Thank you all for joining us today. So before we begin, let me just review some housekeeping items. First, the webcast is being recorded and will be distributed to you via email to allow you to share it with your teams or watch it again later. Second, your line is currently muted. Third, feel free to submit any questions. We welcome all questions and feedback during the call by utilizing the chat function at the bottom of your screen or the Q&A function. We will answer everything towards the end of our presentation, and we will do our best to keep the webinar to the time allotment of 45 minutes and 15 minutes of Q&A. So at this time, I'll turn over the presentation to Kinjan, and he will walk you through a bit of our agenda for today.
Hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So let's talk about a little bit of the agenda. Of course, we want to talk about the organizational challenges because that's where this entire solution was built, and we will touch a little bit on that. How do we do the data optimization? That's a very important thing. And in IoT world where you have so much of data that is actually coming out of various channels, we want to kind of optimize that and understand that, okay, how exactly, and there has to be some method to that entire madness, and that's what we'll touch a little bit. Valuable insights. How do we actually bring those insights out? How do we actually map them with our business KPIs or what objectives we want to achieve? And at different stage of your organization or the product development, you need different insights, and how exactly we can the entire platform can help you with that. Ease of integration is another thing because there are multiple channels that we are integrating. So we'll touch base a little bit that, okay, how actually we have simplified that integration. Dashboards, here we'll actually walk you through some of the dashboards that we have consolidated. For different personas, one dashboard just for the sake of this webinar, and we'll walk you through how exactly we can do so. Just to give an idea, this will be a very high level dashboard that we have created, just to give an idea what exactly the kind of power that this entire platform brings in it. Yeah, and then happy to answer any of your questions. Can you move the next? So, Infostretch is a digital engineering services company, and we are backed by Goldman Sachs and Everstone. Now we are 2,000 plus digital professionals as an organization, and we have expanded our footprint in 3 different continents. Of course, predominantly in India, we have about 5 offices. Ahmedabad, Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. In US, we have, we are headquartered in at Silicon Valley, Santa Clara. New York, Chicago, Dublin, and Ohio Dublin, Ohio are other offices that we have, and in Europe we have London and Sunderland. I mean, Sunderland is UK, so we have offices over there. And we always say that we are big enough to matter and small enough to care, right? So that's Infostretch. Can we move? Shabir?
Yep. So yeah, thanks, Kenjal. So we just wanted to highlight something about Infostretch and AWS partnership. So Infostretch has been an AWS advanced partner for last 4 years, and they have a strong pool of solutions architects and AWS professionals with good focus on application modernization and pretty much every need on AWS cloud, right? And I have been personally working with Infostretch for more than a year, and I've seen them grow their services and offerings all along, and they've uh, all throughout the process earned a lot of different badges that AWS has for differentiation. So they have the expertise on those different areas that are shown on your screen right now. And one of the badges I want to highlight, which is a new one, which is the life sciences competency. So AWS has tens and thousands of partners, and out of that, only less than 50 of them have this competency. So it is a great achievement. So kudos to the Infostretch team on this great achievement. Move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so in this slide, we see how AWS has services available in different areas. And among the public cloud platforms, AWS has the broadest and the deepest functionality. What we mean by that is we have our service offerings available across multiple different domains, like you can see on the screen, a snapshot of a few of them, analytics, DevOps, mobile services, IoT, and others. And even in those, you see the offerings have a lot of depth. Just in machine learning, you can see on your screen about 7 offerings, which is quite a lot, and there's more that are not represented on the screen. So when you're working on AWS cloud, and you're starting off on cloud, it becomes very crucial to have a partner that has worked on the services, that has the knowledge. And I can say for sure that Infostretch is one of the partners that does definitely have this knowledge, and Kinjan and Chintan will show you how they solved this very unique problem for their customers, and how this solution would help you maximize your cloud, maximize yourself on cloud. So over to you, Kinjan.
Sabir, can we move to the next one, please? Okay, so let's talk about the organizational challenges. And before we get into the organizational challenges, I would like to talk about what is the typical product development organization, especially when it comes to the IoT world. And we have just divided it into 3 different areas. One is the development area, where you have engineering, innovations, UI, UX, release management, and all that is happening. Another one is pure operations area, where we have compliances and customer success and clinical trials. Clinical trials is very important when it comes to the medical devices field and IoMT area. And V&V is another big area where the regulatories are involved, because whenever you are developing a medical device or devices, FDA is part of it, and you have to actually take care of those compliance and V&V and then processes. Of course, customer support is kind of a separate area, or I would say a complete customer success area, where how do we actually respond to the customer, and how can we solve customers' problem on a one call, is something that every organization has that vision and dream that, okay, I would like to I would like to support my customers just a call away and something like that, right? So how can we help them achieve that? So that's the third thing. So if you look at the challenges, can you move on? These are some of the challenges that we have highlighted here, like device rebooting frequently. That's a typical problem. Any product engineering team will come up with, or if it's a battery operated device, oh, my batteries are draining and I have no idea what's the pattern, why it is draining, or how many devices are active, and what actually I'm getting some issues, how many active devices they are, right? So I was sold like 10,000 20,000 devices, but only 5,000 are active, and in out of 5,000, if my 500 or 600,000 devices are kind of have some critical problems, that's a huge number to achieve. That's a huge number versus 10,000 active devices. So that's one thing that we want to understand. We have new firmwares that we want to release on the device, or we have new applications that we want to release on a mobile app, new mobile applications that we want to release. How can I release it to the specific user group? Or I would say, nowadays taste on production is a very common concept, right? How can we bring that taste on production concept on the IoT devices? So we are addressing that another area, right? I have a new app releases, and whether the same thing, right? I have a new application releases, whether that application will actually work seamlessly with my different device firmwares that are already on the ground. Live, I want to view my customers' data, or at least metadata live. What are the events happening? How can I connect to my customer device and control it remotely or manage it remotely? Regulators have always a challenge of how can I recall some of the devices, because there is a problem with the device hardware or a software, or there are battery drain problems, or there are some problems, and they have to kind of recall those devices. We hear this recall cars very commonly, and it's the same in the devices world as well, right? That okay, there are some major flaws in the device, and we have to recall those devices. We have already sold that, and now we have understood. So that's another area. And for product development teams, if I'm releasing new functionality, how can I understand the end-to-end user journey? So these are some of the challenges, we always hear from one or the other, team members, and how exactly we can do. So let's look at the RDMP. What is it, right? And how we are solving these different challenges. So if we go to so first division that we are looking at is engineering division, right? They have to understand the behaviors, they have to understand the error scenarios, patterns, critical errors, why they are coming, what is the root cause of those errors. Today, what happens is engineers are looking at those bunch of 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 line logs and try to figure out, oh, this could be the error area, or this could be a problem area. And don't forget, we are not talking about these problems on one of these. I mean, we are talking about problem at devices level, or application level, or gateway level, or web application level somewhere, right? So it's like we want to understand where this happens and what are the patterns in which this is happening, right? They want to take some actions, like I want to plan the DFU. DFU is basically device firmware update remotely, right? So DFU, or some of them they call it FOTA, which is like firmware update over the air, right? So these are the kind of areas that they want to take action, and they said, okay, on this device I want to send this and see whether it's working perfectly fine, or they want to control the entire release planning, right? And want to closely monitor those releases. These are some of the things that engineering team wants to do, and if they have they have some recommendation available, or some visual way of representing their logs available, this will be really helpful to them. So that's one thing that we are answering here. The second thing that we are answering here is marketing and product management team, where let's say marketing has planned some functionalities and they have added some functionalities to their device or their mobile application or their web application, and they want to track how the user journey is happening, whether users are effectively using the functionality. For every functionality, for every persona that they add new functionality, they have certain, certain objectives that they have said that, okay, using this functionality, my user will do so and so, so and so, so and so, right? And, the technical team members will always understand, we write user story that way, that as a user or as a patient or as a so and so, I want to do so and so, right? And that's how we actually build these functionalities, and we want to understand the effectiveness of that functionality. And yes, there are, for mobile applications, for web applications, there are a lot of tools available, Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics and whatnot. But for devices where you still have interface on your device and you still want to understand that, okay, how much this interface is being used versus how much the device was controlled by the application or how much device was controlled from the gateway. If you want to understand those things, right, you need end-to-end data and end-to-end analytics, at least data points available, so that we can bring up with that journey and understand what is effective, what is not working, whether users are actually using the functionality. And of course, the same thing that everybody else is doing, where we want to actually, bring up that journey. And not only that, they also want to understand the predictive analysis, right? How exactly my user will behave on certain scenarios, right? And if that's not working out, how can we help them resolve their problems at the same time? A lot of different scenarios that they think through. So that's another area that we are targeting here, that giving them a complete end-to-end user journey is really helpful. So that's another area that we have actually targeted. And the next one is, more the customer support teams, because customer support teams, there is always, when customer is calling in, they only say, okay, your device is not working, or I'm doing this and this, and your device is kind of not giving me correct data or whatever. And that's the kind of input that we receive, and from there they have to actually diagnose what is going on. And this diagnosing this entire ecosystem, right, from your devices to the cloud, it's really difficult if you don't have a right visuals in front of you, or if you do not have a clear insights in front of you. And customer support team, when it is L1 customer support or even in L2 customer support, it is very difficult for them to kind of figure out where the problem could be, right? And usually what happens is, if you don't have a right diagnostic available or live data available for a particular customer, you don't understand what is going on. So that's another area that we have actually addressed here on this platform, and trying to kind of give them a clear idea that what it is. And again, they also want to take some actions, like remotely they want to control the user's device, they want to kind of update the firmwares, diagnose them remotely, and kind of tell user that, okay, do this and this, I want to see what data I'm receiving. So live data is coming to them, and they are actually observing on the dashboard what underneath is happening and all that, right? Or whether I'm receiving the data or not, right? Whether that's a carrier problem or not. So that's another thing. And for regulatory, it's very important that for regulatory, they have to, even there's something called post-market verification, right, and validation. So they have to actually continuously, even in a medical devices world, right, they have to continuously observe what is going on their devices that are already with patients or already on the ground users are using it, right? So they need all these information, and especially if there are some critical problems that are happening, or the data that are supposed to be kind of available from these devices are coming correct or not, or if it is not coming correct, on what conditions it is not coming, right? So let's say you are using a temperature sensing device, or it's continuously monitoring your glucose level and all that. You want to kind of make sure that this device is continuously giving you that data, and it's consistent, and it's there are always error that they maintain that, okay, it should be within that threshold. And if that is not happening, then they actually want to understand what is going on, right? And maybe send a recall notification, or if there are some violations are happening, they want to kind of notify to the FDA or regulatory or compliance governance body, so that they can actually control. So these are some of the areas that we have actually put in remote device management platform. We call it RDMP as short, and since the name was long, so we just put RDMP, but this is remote device management platform is what we have developed, right? So yeah, can we move on to? So there are certain maturity stages that we have to actually bring, right? So, and that's what we have done in agenda, right? So IoT data optimization is the first thing that we have to actually bring in, right? And that's what RDMP brings, that okay, we bring the methodology, we bring the tools to kind of get the optimized data out of all your different sources, right? So that's one thing. The insights, right? As I said, you need insights for different personas, different insights. That's number one. And for different level of your development, different insights. So your KPIs, are changing. Your business KPIs are constantly changing as you mature on your device development journey. Once your device is out in the market, your requirement or your business KPI will change again, right? So based on that, you have to actually modify your visualizations and make sure that you get enough information. But to get to that level, you have to first do the data optimization. And this data optimization is not, it cannot be achieved in one cycle. You have to constantly update that to get more and more information. So we bring those methodologies in place, and this platform will allow you to do it very in a simplified manner, right? The other thing that we are bringing in is ease of integration, right? We cannot say that okay, there is nothing like greenfield in this world. You have to rely on different platforms. You have to rely on different different solutions that are available. With AWS, we have a lot of different solutions available that we are actually integrate, solutions and services available that we have to integrate with. RDMP can actually integrate to the level where even if you are bringing in Google Analytics, some of the data that you already have in Google Analytics, we can bring that data here and we can kind of work with that. Or if you have data using some third-party analytics tool that you are already measuring your mobile applications or some other solutions, we can bring data here and we can kind of work on that. So that's the age of integration, and probably we'll talk how we are actually trying to achieve that, right? And the configurable dashboards, as I mentioned, the insights that we are generating there, also we need that information, and dashboards has to be configurable at a different stage of your product development and for different personas. So that's another area that we have kind of covered here, right? Yeah. So can you move on? Yeah. So let's touch base on the data optimization first, right? How do we actually achieve that? So if we talk about data optimization, can you go to the next one? There's a process that we have to follow, right? So the way we do it is, okay, let's identify all the channels first, right? That is the first thing that we have to do. And from those channels, how and in what way we'll collect the data. So right from your device firmware, or if it is a device that has, let's say, embedded technology like embedded Android or embedded Linux or something like that, how exactly we collect those data? What are the different layers through which the data is traveling? So if you are talking about the end device, that end device, whether that end device is directly communicating to the cloud gateway, or that end device is dependent on some mobile application to kind of communicate their data, or they have some kind of base stations available through which it is communicating. We actually identify those things and then come up with the plan that okay, how exactly we want to collect this data. That's one thing. Once we have collected the data, the consolidation of data is another thing, because all the data that we are receiving are timestamped. But once we have those data available, we want to kind of consolidate that data. We want to unify that data, and that's the unification that we do. And this is all about how we are collecting the data. We are still not on the visualization part. It's all about that, because in the data world, it is garbage in, garbage out, right? So if my data is not well organized, if it is not clean enough, I'm not going to get the visualizations or the analytics that I want to actually come up with. The fourth stage, the way we see is, let's focus on the basic analytics that we need. Let's not get into the recommendation or predictions or anything at this point. Do I get two things? Historical data. Do I get trends? Do I get historical data? Do I get live data that I want to understand what is going on now on a particular device, on a set of devices? That's the next thing that we want to achieve, and then get into the recommendation engine. Once we understand the patterns, we can come up with the recommendation. So these are some of the maturity processes that we are achieving. And if we go to the, can we go to the next one? Integration, like, the real-time access, right? So these are different data sources. What are the different data integration? So at the data integration layer, we want to do the data mapping, cleaning of the data, making sure that we have all the data available in a right format that we need, so that we can make some meaningful decisions based on that, right? So that's another thing. Unification is another area that we focus on. Data aggregation, of course, we have to aggregate certain data to understand the trends, to come up with the predictive analysis, so to come up with the recommendation, predictions, and all that, right? So that's the aggregation layer, of course, microservices, and then visualization. So this is our kind of end-to-end platform. I would say 50,000 view of our platform. That okay, this is how we have divided in these different layers. We have divided our platform, and this is how. This is very common. At every layer, we have a lot of AWS services available, and we have completely used AWS services to achieve what we are achieving here, right? So that's the view that we have here. Next one, please. Okay, so now if we deep dive, how exactly we do the data collection, right? So the taxonomy, like, this is a methodology that we have actually created, like, from every source, we are collecting events, and those are the events that we have measured. And during that event happens, what different metadata and what different parameters that we want to collect. Again, we are not collecting any real-time data here, or any, because since we are predominantly working in the medical devices world, we have to be very careful that we are not touching the patient's data at this point. We do not want to look at patient's data. These are all metadata. These are all device data and the applications data, or that we are collecting, and based on that, we are actually coming up with the entire taxonomy. So that's the taxonomy that we put in place for devices, for applications, every layer, right? And that actually gives us a holistic view that what we want to measure. And when we are doing the taxonomy design, and when we are designing this area, we also look at the business KPIs that we want to achieve, because that's based on that we actually come back and see how exactly we can bring those patterns. So it's approach from left to right and right to left sort of thing, right? We understand both the sides, and we then come up with this plan, and then we actually implement it, right? So that's how it is. The components and libraries that definitely Chintan will talk about is also giving us a lot of data out of the box. So that's another thing that we have. So once you integrate our components and libraries of this platform, some of the data you don't even need to give us. It will automatically pick the data and will give you. So the only thing that our engineering team need to focus on is how do we bring the custom information out, or custom events out. Usually all the system level events we are already taking care of directly out of the box. So that's one thing that we are doing. Yeah, we can go to the next one. So if we look at the insights again, can we go to the next one? how actually we come up with this maturity again. We touch base a little bit on the data maturity. Now we are only focusing on the visualization maturity, where the first target is what happened, right? Let's understand what happened. The descriptive analysis. That's the first thing that we are focusing on. And it's device statistics, device critical alerts that we are receiving. What are the firmwares? What are the different firmware? Because we have always seen nowadays, we use one or the other IoT device or a wearable device where, the firmware updates are very common. Your devices are constantly receiving new updates. So you don't know what version of device you are using, but your firmwares are different version, right? So whether the device is device has latest firmware or not, and how many devices are fully updated. Can I retire my firmware? Some of the firmwares you cannot retire because some of the devices are still using those firmwares. So can I retire those firmwares? How can I retire those firmware? So those are the things that you can kind of make decisions here. Some of the critical alerts you are still receiving from the devices, but you still want to kind of understand why those problems are coming. So whether it's a hardware problem, it's a software problem. If it's a software problem, we have already solved that software problem, right? So that's where you are coming up with the diagnostics that, okay, these are the events happening, these are the journeys that are happening, these are the critical alerts that are happening. How can we actually solve that? And maybe based on these things, we can go back to our customers and tell them that, okay, can you please update this mandatory firmware so that some of your problems that you are facing are solved, right? These things are solved for the devices that are like connected devices and all that, but this is not solved for laptops and all. It is solved, right? Bigger OSs, but not for the RTOS sort of OS where it's a small OS, small footprint and all that. And how do we actually manage it, right? That's very important, because ultimately everything that we are doing, it's the battery consumption too. So we have to take care of those things also. So we have optimized those things, right? So that's a diagnostic analytics. And then if we go to the predictive, like definite trends, based on the trends, how can we actually determine the battery life, or how can we determine where the critical alerts can occur, whether it's a hardware or software combination, or it's a hardware and firmware combination, or is it the carrier level issues, right? I mean, most of the cases we are working in this low frequency carriers a lot, like BLEs and Zigbee and all. We always see that there are issues over there, and how exactly we kind of fix those carrier level issues. The moment you have BLE 5 or something update, some major updates happening on Android devices, it might break, or some major updates on iOS, it might break, or some major updates on embedded Android. What is going on, whether it will break or not break and all that. So those kind of predictive analytics we can run actually. And these are very common problems that we have seen. We are just solving them, right? And then of course, the prescriptive, how can I mitigate? And that's another area that we focus on that okay, there could be some very simple response that, okay, just update the firmware and it will solve. Or there could be some situation. We have seen the situation where we have to actually ask our customers that it's time that we have to probably retire some of your sensors, right? So customers are using old time sensors, and those sensors are now not supported with the new ARM firmwares that have, ARM architecture that has come, and we are still continuing with that. Software has changed. ARM architecture is supporting, but the sensor is not talking. The serial port communication is not happening correctly, and we are not receiving the data. We have recently seen those kind of problems also. And how do we solve them, right? So that's another area that we have focused on. So that's the prescriptive analytics is something that we do out of it. Yeah, can we move on? So yeah, integration part, I would hand over to Chintan. He is close to the architecture and everything. So yeah, Chintan, please.
Thanks, Kinjan. Okay, so in this section, we will see how easily we can integrate RDMP into our existing solution. So first, we will see the RDMP overview at component level. So Rim, can you go to next slide? Okay, so here we are seeing that whole end-to-end data pipeline of RDMP. So if we start from left-hand side, they are basically consumer IoT device or medical device on which developer integrates Infostretch Aws library, and they need to define like which kind of events I want to capture or which I want to collect from the microcontrollers. So developer will integrate those library and it will start collecting those custom events. From edge services side, we need to integrate our mobile or hub SDK, basically Greengrass SDK and mobile SDK on mobile or our hub level, which will collect the events happening on mobile device or hub device. Plus, it will capture the events occurred on microcontrollers over BLE channel. It will combine them and send it to server. This is where our processing starts. So first stage is basically data staging, where we are doing ingestion process and cleansing process of data. Once that is done, we are going next stage, which is a data processing stage, where we are getting insight out of our data, like how many critical events are occurred on devices, how many journeys have been completed, how many journeys have been failed. So those kind of insights we are deriving out of that and storing those data into Elasticsearch service. Now, our all insights are there in our data storage. So on right hand side, if you see, we have consumer, which is basically our RDMP portal, from where different persona which we discussed earlier, marketing team, engineering team, VNV team, customer support team, can log into those portal, query the required data, and on their dashboard, they will be able to see all those data via their front-end portal and API gateway and Lambda function, which is basically creating a microservice. Can we go to next? Okay, this is the actual architecture of our RDMP. So on left-hand side, as we discussed, they are basically microcontrollers and firmware, collecting the data, sending it to hub and mobile. Mobile is also creating their own or collecting their own data, sending it to AWS IoT core. Then based on rule engine, we are pushing that data to our Amazon Kinesis Firehose. Those data are processed by Amazon Lambda, AWS Lambda for adding timestamp, adding missing metadata, and then we are storing them on Elasticsearch. Now, the data stored on or collected at Elasticsearch, we are doing a batch processing at every X minute of interval. So that Lambda function is identifying the journey, how many journeys are completed, and basically analytics around user journey from device to mobile application, we are finding out from them. And on DynamoDB, we are storing user specific metadata. So how many journeys are created, which events are marked as a critical event. We are collecting all those data and we are keeping them in Amazon DynamoDB. On right hand side, we have created a microservice architecture with Amazon API gateway and AWS Lambda, which will basically serve as an API and from our front end deployed in AWS S3 and served via CloudFront, which will be visible to user. We have all those backup mechanism, disaster recovery mechanism, logging, and all those stuff being done as per AWS best practices guideline. Can we go to
And
next slide?
Just to add to this one, so this is the architecture that we have deployed, but we have this can be modified as per your existing architecture. So if you have some existing architecture already deployed, we can modify our we can modify this entire architecture to match with what your architecture is. Yep. So sorry, Chindan, go ahead, please.
Yep. Rim, can you go to next slide? Okay. This is overall introduction of our Infostretch free RTOS library. So this free RTOS library is mainly needs to be integrated by developer on microcontroller firmware. Responsibility of this Infostretch library is to collect the logs or collect the event, which is basically defined by developers. The second component, log storage manager, will store those data on their local storage till the time it gets synced to mobile application or hub. Device vital manager. So whenever we are collecting any event, this device vital manager is mainly responsible for collecting common metadata, which is what is your CPU usage, what was your memory usage, what was your storage. All those common data are basically captured by device vital manager. Configuration manager, there are few configuration we need to capture, at what frequency we need to capture the data from sensor, at which frequency we need to sync the data, and then DFU manager, device firmware update manager, and BLE log transfer, which is basically responsible for transferring data from your microcontroller to mobile application. Can we go to next slide? This is our hub and mobile application framework, which is consist of two parts: Infostretch BLE framework and log collector. Infostretch BLE connector is mainly responsible for creating and managing BLE connection with our edge device and mobile application or hub application. It manages whole connection as a configuration, parsing the data, and all those are basically responsibility of BLE kit framework. And on right hand side, we have a component for log collector. So app log collector will collect log data from mobile itself. It will sync the data, log data from our device, event data from our device. App vital and metadata manager will collect common data like CPU usage, memory usage, and all those data. Device firmware update is responsible for downloading firmware from server side and pushing it to the microcontroller, and cloud sync is basically combine all those events captured from edge device and mobile device to our server. So this is mainly our responsibility of mobile app framework. Okay, so now we will go to directly to the demo. So yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, so here we are able to see our Rdmp dashboard. So on left hand side, you are able to see total active devices. Okay, let me know. So on left hand side, we are able to see total active devices on field, and those devices are basically segregated based on device model. So we might have multiple variant of our device, so they are basically segregated on those models. If I click on device, it will show me like how many total devices are available, and basically I will get the list of all those devices, and in each row I will able to see what is their serial number, model number, hardware revision, firmware, battery information. So all basic information which I need, I will get that snapshot here itself. I will able to search those devices by serial number here. I can filter those data like device model. So device model is IS Flex. I can basically filter all those data who is basically IS Flex. I can basically filter devices who are connected to particular phone. So I can filter like I want to device which are basically connected with iPhone X only. So I can filter all those data. I can filter by firmware itself. So show me all those devices with firmware 1.0. So I can filter all those data based on my necessity and requirement. Now I will basically click on any of the device. It will give me all those basic information on the top, and it will provide me a timeline view like what is happening on the device. So there are a few sequence of event. I can zoom it and I can see what is happening on that. So these are the events. So it started with initiating a vital measurement from mobile application. then initiating HR measurement. The device responded to that HR value. Mobile device is asking for received HR value. So same sequence of event, what happened on device, I'm seeing in the timeline form. Same details I can see in the log view, in the uh, uh, timeline kind of view, where I will able to see all those details with all those metadata also. So this is the first event, initiating vital measurement. That event happened on mobile. It was a custom event. Battery percentage on mobile was 60%, network was Wi-Fi. So all relevant metadata, which is basically required by developers to debug any issues, we are basically covering here. And here is the sequence, like what happened on that device. So first two events happened on mobile phone, then on device, then mobile phone, with all those metadata information. Coming back to our dashboard, we have the statistic for device firmware. So from total number of device, how many devices are on firmware version 1.0.0, how many are on 1.1.0. So those kind of statistic I can get. Here is the events by location. So from here I can see like what is the usage percentage all over the world. So we are getting this much event from India region and this much event from US region. So those kind of analytics we are seeing here. Here is critical alerts. This is most important part for the engineering persona. So as the engineering persona, I want to reduce this number as much as possible. So basically, there are some event marked as a critical event. So those can be a segmentation fault, hard fault, watchdog reset. So these are the event developer, engineers or developer keeps watch on, they want to reduce. Here I will see hard fault event. This is basically a trending pattern of how that error has occurred. If we go to this view device, it will show me all the devices on which this error has occurred. So I will basically click on this device. And as you go, this red mark is showing that hard fault error has occurred. So let me zoom into that part and I will able to see the sequence what happened on device. So initiating vital measurement started, subscribe for HR. So some event happened on device itself, and then whenever vital measurement completed, within 10 seconds, the device hard fault had occurred. So this is basically, this will help engineer to reproduce that sequence, like what happened on mobile device, what happened on your edge device, and after how much time or in what condition that error has occurred. So I can see the same view here also. Like this is where hard fault has occurred. And we can see the previous 3, 4, 5 events to diagnose what can be a root cause or how to reproduce that. So this is the basically importance of critical alerts. Here is the overall analysis of event. So consider the case I want to find some statistic around, like whenever hard fault event is occurring, on which firmware it is occurring at which frequency. So I can add that data, and here is the information. This hard fault event is occurring. So from total events, it is occurring 23 times on version 1.1.0, 19 times on version 1.0.0. Same way I can evaluate it against more parameter also. So let's say on model number, I want to see on which model this event is occurring at what frequency. So I can identify that frequency number as well. Coming back to our user journey. So user journey is end-to-end journey, which user is interacting with your system from your wearable device or medical device to your mobile phone. What the communication is being done or how user is transitioning between that. So we can create different user journeys. So here we have created some 4 sample user journey: device connection, vital measurement, user acquisition, and sign in. Here marketing persona or product team will able to see, like from this journey, how many are successful, how many are abandoned or how many are failed. So if we consider the sign-in journey, most of the time it is successful or incompleted. User has started signing and somehow he left, but it is not failed. So that is good from engineering team perspective that okay, there is no issue in sign-in journey. Same as user acquisition also. So the failing rate is 0, but yeah, user are abandoning this journey. So product team can look into that, why user are leaving this or why user are keeping this journey as incomplete, so they can improve that product. We are coming to third journey, which is a device connection, and there you will see that failure ratio is high. So we can check the
Yeah.
device
So
on. Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Chintanya. Complete your thoughts. Yeah.
So here we will able to see like on which devices this journey has happened, and if you want to do the failure analysis of this journey, we can view this device. And let's say I want to see on this device that what had happened which caused the failure of this journey. So here is the journey. Let me zoom into that. So first event happened on mobile, like user launched the application, getting started page, sign up button, he has signed up. He was in onboarding page, and at that time device started advertising. My wearable device started advertisement, and within 10 seconds of time heap memory was full, and that caused a device reboot, and that is why user might have abandoned this journey or this journey has been failed. So this kind of analysis we can do here. And if we need more metadata, we can get from here, like what was the app version, what was the firmware version, battery usage, disk usage, which phone user was using.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, we can, and this entire dashboard can be configured. So we can configure these dashboards the way we need. And right now we have configured it for customer support and engineering team, but it can be configured for any other. This is predominantly focusing on these two areas, but it can be configured for product team and other personas as well. So do we move on to the next one then?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Rdmp is available on Marketplace. Yes, Shabir.
Yeah, so Rdmp, you've seen the advantages and the benefits you get out of using that the platform, and it is available on AWS Marketplace. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the AWS Marketplace. And the AWS Marketplace is where you have professional services and products listed. So Infostretch has their offerings there. The link to that is available there on the screen, as well as you can use the QR code. The benefit of using the AWS Marketplace is you get that seamless experience of using your own AWS account to actually follow up with Infostretch and get access to this Rdmp platform and use it. And then you can always reach out to the Infostretch team on that email, awsexperts@infostretch.com. So yeah, look through the marketplace offerings that Infostretch has. Even apart from Rdmp, they have a few more offerings there. So definitely look that up. Over to you, Kinjan.
Perfect. So at this time, we definitely want to allocate some time to answer your questions. As a reminder, if you have anything that you want to ask our speakers, feel free to submit your questions through the chat feature at the bottom of your screen or the Q&A function. It seems like we already have a few questions here, so I'm going to get started with these. So for Kinjan, the main question we have here is, if the devices are already in market, how can this be integrated? And in a nutshell, what is the best time to implement Rdmp in the product lifecycle?
So this is the best question, and we always get this question, right? Like, whenever so device is in the market, we can still update the entire, because see, we are not changing anything on the hardware. This is all software, right? So right from the firmware to the cloud, it's all software. So we can start integrating the Rdmp. That's where I said that if you already have the architecture in place, if you already have your data pipelines in place, if you already have your firmwares and mobile applications in the market, we can bring in our components, and those components can be integrated seamlessly. So we have done this numerous times for many customers, and this is like, that's one of the reasons why this entire platform is componentized in such a way that it can be integrated at the later stage also. Right?
Perfect, thank you. And I think this might be a better question for Shabir, but the question says, what kind of support does AWS provide?
All right, so the way I understand this question is support on the services or the platform that you use for on AWS. So if you are using third-party services, there is support that is available through those third parties. So in this case, if you're requesting support on Rdmp, you would reach out to Infostretch on that. But just basically on your AWS services, there are different levels of support. There's developer support, there's business support, as well as enterprise support, which have different offerings at different price points. It's best to look that up online, just to keep a time check. So, just look it up online. It's pretty, self-explanatory, and there's different levels of service support available.
Thank you. Another question I have here is, we have released multiple versions of our firmware already. How can I integrate RDMP? Chintan, do you want to take that one maybe?
Sure. So as Kinjan said, like we can integrate RDMP at any stage of your product or at any time. So to integrate RDMP at any stage, developer just need to start integrating that Infostretch IoT library into their firmware, define which events they want to collect, release their new firmware with their existing DFV methodology, and once it is deployed to field, we will basically start collecting the data from those library, and that can be ingested to our cloud to take advantage of RDMP.
Perfect, thank you. Another one here, I think for Shabir is, if you have an application that is on-prem and you want to move it to the cloud, how can that be done? How do you get started pretty much?
Yeah, that's a great question. So customers want to move to cloud. There are different ways, like they say there's 7 Rs. So you can refactor, you can retain, you can rehost or repurchase. So there's different methodologies. So if you're just starting off, work with some partner who has that experience, and partners like Infostretch can help you get started doing some POCs, or even doing immersion days, what we call as hands-on learning experience for customers, so the customers can get like literally hands-on, first-hand experience on using cloud, and feel more comfortable using it, and then start migrating their services. So, the best approach would be to start with a small set of services, and then try to get your feet wet, and then try to grow into, more mission-critical service offerings into the cloud.
Great. And talking about immersion days, it seems like there's a question that is related to that here. So what if a company really wants to do a deep dive, like you mentioned, and relate to our company's needs in terms of, the technical expertise? How can they do that, and how does it work?
Yeah, so let's say you're working on, again, in the field of IoT or maybe data analytics, and you want to dive deep into the services. We saw a slide which has a lot of services listed for analytics, data analytics, and you want to try to see what fits your scenario best. You can work with partners and do an immersion day, which is a hands-on learning experience. So you get a first-hand experience on using those tools, getting yourself familiarized with it, and see if that makes sense for you to use that for your application. And that way you can come out with a POC that you can do, And basically, there is mechanisms where partners like Infostretch can help you do that POC and also get you some level of comfortness on that platform, on the AWS cloud platform, and get you going that way.
Perfect. I think we probably have time for one short question. Kinjan, if you want to give me a short answer to this one. We are a startup. Is it worth it to integrate RDMP at this stage?
Oh yes, absolutely. You should start integrating this platform right at this point, because while you are actually building your device, while you are actually building your first version of firmware and all that, if you have this platform integrated, it may not, we can bring the maturity later on, but you can start integrating it right now, so that at least start collecting data and do the visualization, because this tool can be useful even during your development phases, right? So different development phases, this can be really helpful, and it can be helpful to your regulatory submissions also, because there are a lot of data points that you need that can go on your regulatory documentation. So it can be really helpful that way also. So yes, the answer is yes, you should do that.
Perfect. And I believe that's all the questions we are able to answer at this time. Thank you so much to all of our speakers, Shabir, Kinjan, Chintan, for joining us today. And thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to check out and subscribe to our DTV, a digital transformation channel that brings in industry experts, including Shabir, hopefully very soon. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at info@infostretch.com, or you can reach out to our presenters directly here. Their emails are on your screen. You should be able to receive an email in the next 24 hours with this deck and the link to the webcast replay. Thank you again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.